Y'all, I was not ready for this subject matter. Hello, everyone. I'm author R.L. Raintree. This is Reels and Reads, where I give honest reviews and occasional spoilers. Penguin House was kind enough to advance me a copy, and let me tell you, this was a read. It's a collection of short stories about coming of age as a Black teenager in a small town in New York. Now, that in and of itself shouldn't be a big deal, but it really opened my eyes to what it was like for me coming of age. Now, I'm not from New York, I'm from California, but every story in this book is incredibly relatable, and it made me think about some things and face some things I wasn't necessarily ready to deal with. This book is a menagerie of literary fiction that accurately captures the grittiness, the rawness, the awkwardness of coming of age as a Black teenager. And this includes all sexualities and all genders in this book. And it's because of that no matter who you are, if you were once a Black teenager, you're going to have a come to Jesus moment having read this book. It perfectly captures that moment in time when you realize you're not a little girl anymore, you're not a little boy anymore, that moment when you may have your sexual awakening, that moment when you realize it's time to grow up, or maybe you have already grown up, and that's not always a good thing the way it happens, which is why I wasn't prepared. Right off the bat, the very first story is about a 14-year-old girl who has a relationship with a security guard who's in his 30s. Now, I use the term relationship very, very loosely. From her point of view, it's a great friendship, and he does things that make me, as a guardian, very uncomfortable. And if you're a parent, it's going to make you uncomfortable. But the fact is that there's a lot of Black women out there who experienced what this young lady experienced. Now, we're not talking about an inappropriate experience that was traumatizing. We're talking about an experience that from the point of view of the 14-year-old was a beautiful thing, something she's looking forward to, and she's not the only one. So where this became difficult for me is being an adult who knows better, who can see through, what predators are doing and the manipulation that it takes to convince a victim that what they're doing is okay and safe and a good thing. Having that version of me read something that when I was 14 years old, I probably wouldn't have seen a problem with either. And that's what made that first story so difficult for me, is being old enough to know better, but also remembering what it was like to be that 14-year-old girl who didn't. Now, for those who need trigger warnings, I can tell you that not all of the stories are like that. Some are worse, some are very different, but they are all coming of age stories. Drinking, wanting to be wanted, dating, when one of your friends wants to date your brother. There are a lot of different versions of what it was like for a teenager to come of age. Of course, there's an LGBTQ story in there. There may have been more than one, but I've read a lot of books these last 30 days, so I apologize for the miscount. But it comes at you from every angle. You don't have to be from New York. You don't have to have experienced these experiences. But I promise you that if you haven't experienced at least one of the stories in this book, you know someone who does. It's incredibly relatable, incredible attention to detail, incredibly insightful, nostalgic in some ways. And it's like a glass of cold water to the face on a hot day. Some people may not have even realized that they've experienced it from that perspective until they read about it. It is definitely a book that sticks to you once you've read it. I recommend this book to Black men and Black women as a welcome look back into their own childhood, to go and remind themselves of what it was like for them to come of age, even if their story wasn't represented in this book. Remember what that was like and compare it to what you know now. Remember how you thought the world may end because you missed a dance or something. Look back by looking at this book. It really helps take you back in time to something that may be a good memory for you, and unfortunately for some, a bad memory. But you will have that memory give you perspective, and you will learn from each experience in this book. I also recommend this book to late teens, so we're talking age 16 and up, and you'll have to gauge the maturity of your 16-year-old. You may encounter a teenager who's going through some of the stories that aren't necessarily positive, and that will give you a gateway to have a conversation. You may run into some teenagers that are having some of the positive experiences, and they'll feel less shy about it. Now, when I say give it to a teenager, I'm talking about your own. Don't just be randomly giving this book out to teenagers. That's inappropriate. But if you have a daughter, a niece, maybe a teenage cousin, this is one of those books, like giving them chicken soup for the soul or something, that helps them feel more normal, that helps them look at things from a different perspective. This book had an easy 5 stars. I like that it made me uncomfortable. I like that it made me smile. I like that it made me nostalgic. I like that it made me relive my past. And I like that it gave me perspective that I didn't think was possible for me to change. It felt like this author truly understood what it was like to be a Black girl growing up. And at the same time, even though I was never a boy, it feels like they fully understood what it was like to be a queer boy, to be a boy at all, to be queer at all. It just really felt like this person just stepped inside of each one of these teenagers' minds and told the story from that perspective. This author is extremely talented. I would definitely read more from this author. And again, I would make this a book club read, and I would definitely share this with other people. Once again, I'm author R.L. Raintree. This has been Reels and Reads, and thank you so much for watching.